With Thanksgiving just 2 weeks away, it's time to get my kitchen ready for the holidays. Join me for a day of cleaning, baking, and holiday kitchen prep. This holiday season, one of the things I'm trying to do is reclaim a little simplicity in my home. So rather than rushing and getting everything done the day or 2 days before Thanksgiving or Christmas, for example, I am trying to get a head start by doing a couple of things now, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. So today I'm going to share with you some tips and ideas that can help you get a head start on your holiday kitchen prep. And the first thing I am doing is cleaning out my fridge. I think every day is better with a clean fridge, but it is a little tedious, so I don't do it all the time. Usually when I clean my fridge out, I do a pretty big deep clean and wash everything with soap and water. But this time I'm just taking everything out and I'm wiping down the inside. Next time I clean the fridge, probably after Christmas, I will take everything out and give it a good scrub, but I feel like it's all going to get pretty dirty again anyway with the holidays. So this will work for now. And this is a pretty important task to do early because you'll probably be filling up your fridge with groceries for Thanksgiving in a week or so. So I like to make sure this is done pretty far in advance. When it comes to organizing the fridge, I am not that organized. In the past, I have tried using like little plastic containers and things to organize sauces and condiments, but I found that they just kind of made things a little bit more difficult. They were kind of a pain to take out of the fridge. The sauces and stuff that were in the back of the little container were forgotten about and expired. So I just try to do a couple of things. One, get rid of anything that's expired. Two, make sure I have the essentials. And three, anything that needs to be used moves to the front of the fridge. But most importantly, for holiday prep, I try to make sure I have plenty of open space for things like a turkey and ham. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be making some casseroles in advance. And I want to make sure that I have room for all of that stuff. When it gets a little closer to the actual holiday, I will do that surface level cleaning the top of the stove, cleaning the front of the oven, and those sorts of things. But for now, what I'm really focusing on are these larger, more tedious tasks. I will get back to some cleaning tips later in the video, but first I want to share another really important holiday kitchen prep tip, and that is to recipe test anything new that you are making. So about a week ago, maybe a little bit more, I harvested some wild persimmons from a tree in our backyard, and they are ready to use. So I want to make a wild persimmon sweetbread for our holiday breakfast, but I have never made that before. So what I am doing today is recipe testing this bread recipe, and I'm just making a half batch because I don't know how it's going to turn out. To make this, first I am just cutting open the persimmon and taking out the seed. Now persimmons, at least the ones that are wild here in North Carolina, have a pretty large seed inside and then a bunch of small seeds. The small seeds were impossible to take out. So I took the big seed out and then I put everything in a blender and then pushed it through a fine mesh strainer. Now, if you had a food mill, that would work a little bit better, but this still worked just fine. I just want to get any little seeds or bits and pieces out before putting it into the bread. This is a pretty classic sweetbread recipe, so if you want a good base recipe, this is what I would use. 1¼ cups of all-purpose flour, a half a teaspoon of salt, 1½ teaspoons of baking soda, and then you can add whatever spices you want. For this one, I use cinnamon and nutmeg. 2 eggs, about a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract or more if you prefer, a half a cup of butter, 3/4 cups of sugar, and then a cup of some sort of puree. It could be applesauce, pumpkin puree, persimmon puree, anything you want. And then in a stand mixer, you combine the wet ingredients, and another bowl, combine the dry ingredients, and then mix them together for your batter. Having a base recipe like that can be really helpful when the holidays are here, so that way you don't have to try new things all of the time. But even though I have this base recipe down pat for lots of other types of sweetbread, I have never baked with wild persimmons before, and they are extremely astringent. And so if they're not perfectly ripe, they can have a really off-putting flavor. So I want to make sure that these taste good and that the bread works out. If you do have wild persimmons, they are very different than the type you get in the store, and they are ripe when they are super wrinkly. They look like they have gone bad, but that's actually when they are good, and they get nice and creamy on the inside. And the good news is this bread was delicious. It is very reminiscent of a gingerbread, and I will definitely be making this for our Thanksgiving breakfast. The other thing that I want to do to prep my kitchen for the holidays is to prepare any dishes that I'm going to use that I don't use on the reg. So I have been thrifting lately. It's a new hobby of mine. And I found this beautiful punch bowl set at a thrift shop in a different town for $5.50. Now it is missing one mug and the pedestal, but this will still work just fine. We have plenty of mugs for our family to use. So I am getting this washed and cleaned up so we can enjoy it for the holidays. So a really helpful thing to do as you prepare is to get any dishes out that you're going to use for your Thanksgiving or Christmas meals. Grab your roasting pan, clean that, get your casserole dishes out, clean them, and make sure those things are ready to go, because these are tedious tasks that can take up kind of a lot of time and really slow you down when it comes to cooking and getting everything together for your holiday meals. I also think that if you have any family heirlooms that would lend themselves toward the holidays, this is a great time to dig them out. My mother-in-law just gave me my husband's grandmother's dishes. I didn't get a chance to clean them for this video, but I'm going to wash them and we will have our holiday meals on them. It's just a sweet way to honor lineage and the past and to enjoy holidays with each other. And if you need something like a punch bowl or some pretty bowls for the holidays, when I went thrifting last weekend, I saw so much beautiful stuff. So be sure to check out your local thrift stores for some good deals. Okay, let's talk about things you can make right now for your holiday meal 2 weeks in advance. The first thing I am making is chicken broth. I make chicken broth all the time on YouTube. You're probably sick of hearing me talk about chicken broth, but not only is it a staple every day, it is really the unsung hero of holiday meals. Anytime I have vegetable scraps and chicken bones, I put them in a broth bag and stick it in the freezer. And when the bag is full, I add that to a Dutch oven, add somewhere between 8 and 12 cups of water, depending on how much I have. And then I simmer it for a couple of hours. And then I have homemade stock. I'm going to freeze this so that way when it's time to actually cook, I will have homemade chicken broth ready in the freezer. Homemade sourdough bread is also a great thing to make in advance. And I know if we're talking about 2 weeks, you might be thinking like, how is that bread going to last 2 weeks? Well, there are a couple ways that you can make your bread now and enjoy it for the holiday. So one way to do this is to make the dough and then stick it in the freezer. So you can freeze sourdough bread dough. I actually have a full tutorial for that on my blog over at moonandmagnolia.com. And I have a video that shows how to do that here on YouTube. I will link those in the description box. So essentially what you do is you make your sourdough dough all the way up through shaping. So do your stretch and folds, do the bulk fermentation, shape your dough, then freeze the dough in a very heavily floured either parchment paper or plastic wrap lined bowl. I do not recommend freezing it in a Banneton basket. Just trust me on that one. It does not work out well. And then when it's time to bake it, take it out of the freezer, let it thaw, do a second rise until doubled again, and bake it as you normally would. So you can make the dough now and have fresh bread later. That's a really great option if you want fresh bread on Thanksgiving Day. Another option that I think I actually prefer more than freezing the dough is to make the bread now, and then once it's completely cooled and ready to go, wrap it tightly in plastic wrap, put it in a freezer bag, and then freeze the baked dough. You can either freeze the whole bowl or you can pre-slice it and freeze it that way. Either one works totally fine. Freezing the dough or freezing baked bread, really, they both work great. But the reason I like freezing baked bread better is just because it's easier on the day of the holiday. I don't want to have to pay attention to dough and baked bread while I'm doing 500 other things. Now, another option for preparing your bread in advance is to make the dough about 2 or 3 days ahead of time and then keep it in the fridge. So sourdough is pretty cool because when you put it in the fridge, it slows down the fermentation process. So it can stay in the refrigerator for up to 3 days and still be totally usable. It will get a little more sour if you keep it in the fridge that way, and the texture could be just slightly different than if it was just in the fridge, say for 12 hours, but you will still have delicious homemade bread. What I am doing for sourdough and my holiday prep is I am making 2 bowls of sourdough. I'm going to bake them, and then I am going to cube one up and freeze it, and I will be making sourdough stuffing with that. And then the other one, I will probably just pre-slice and freeze so we can enjoy it the week of Thanksgiving. Okay, this is a really fun one to prep for the holidays and a little different than your normal holiday prep. I am making little freezer bags with simmer pot ingredients. So a simmer pot is simply just a combination of ingredients that you boil in water that creates a really beautiful and cozy aroma in your home. I actually have a full recipe for this over on my blog at moonandmagnolia.com. I will leave that in the description box, and I'm pretty sure I had this simmer pot in a vlog a few weeks ago. I'll find that and leave that in the description box too. But essentially what I'm doing is adding in a cup of pumpkin puree, some diced apple, about 3 to 4 cinnamon sticks, a tablespoon of pumpkin spice, a tablespoon of whole cloves, and a tablespoon of vanilla. And I'm putting those in sandwich bags, and then I will freeze them. So that way on Thanksgiving, when I have company and I want my home to feel cozy, I have that ready to go. I'll put the frozen simmer pot ingredients into a pot of boiling water, and that is all I have to do. And you can add anything aromatic to this if you have an essential oil that you like, or maybe a different fruit. In fact, I had an orange that was past its prime, so I diced that up and put it in one of the simmer pot bags too. Maybe you have some different spices that you want to throw in. Really, anything will work that is aromatic, and it's such a nice way to create a sense of coziness in your home over the holidays. And one thing I forgot to mention about the simmer pot is they last a while too. So you can use it for a couple of hours, let it cool down, pop it in the fridge, and then use it again. I usually get about 3 to 4 uses out of mine. And back to cleaning we go. I really need to clean my ovens, but I don't want to do a full deep clean, kind of like the fridge. I just don't want to do a full deep clean, but I know it's going to get really messy. So I am doing a very light steam clean in both my top and bottom ovens. My ovens have a steam clean feature, and they're made for pouring water on the bottom. I don't know about other types of ovens, but if yours is not made for that, I think you could probably put a pot of boiling water in there and just let the steam loosen up all that grime. I think it would probably work the same way. But all I'm doing is just filling the bottom of the ovens with water. I think the top takes a half cup and the bottom of a full cup, and then hit the steam clean button. And when it's done, about 30 minutes later, I am wiping it out. And this worked really well. It got a lot of grease and grime off. After the holidays, I'm going to do a full-blown oven cleaning. But until then, this is a great way to prep. And last, I am doing a little maintenance on my kitchen workhorses, my cast iron skillet and my butcher block cutting board. My cast iron skillet really needs to be re-seasoned, and I had some stuff stuck on from the night before. So I am cleaning it with a Scrub Daddy and a little bit of regular dish soap, and then rinsing that with hot water. And then I just make sure the cast iron skillet is nice and dry. And I know most people like to season their cast iron in the oven upside down for like an hour at a high temperature. I actually just season mine on the stove for day-to-day seasoning. Here I am adding a really thin layer of avocado oil, then I'm turning my gas stove on high, and when it starts to smoke, I turn the stove off. This method has worked great for me over the years for seasoning my cast iron. The other thing I need to do is condition my butcher block. This is pretty important for regular care and maintenance, but I'm a little bit behind on it. So here I am adding some butcher block conditioner on it and then rubbing it in with a paper towel. And you can repeat this 3 or 4 times. You really want enough oil and conditioner to get down in there to really keep your cutting board hydrated. This helps prevent any unwanted bacterial growth inside of your cutting board if it is an end grain cutting board like this one, and it will just protect the longevity of your cutting board. I do recommend looking through your kitchen, seeing what your workhorses are, and make sure they are in working order. I hope this video has inspired you to reclaim a little simplicity in the holidays by getting some things done now so you can enjoy the holiday season. If you want to save this video for reference, click the share button, select Pinterest, choose your board, and you can save it there. So that way you can come back to this video if you need a few reference points. Also, don't forget to sign up for the email list. When you join the email list, I will send you all of my blogs, recipes, tutorials, videos, and more directly to your inbox. I hope you are off to a wonderful holiday season. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I will see you again next time.